Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so excited to be here together in this conversation. I think this has to be one of the most important conversations I'll be a part of in any way at the summit this year. We are living in an incredibly tumultuous moment across the globe. We are seeing all of the problems that we've seen kids going through for years in school systems that are having trouble and schools that are having trouble and the stress of social media. But today we're going to talk about a whole different level of stress. What is it like to be a child or a student in a time of armed conflict? And how can a government and how can the private sector respond? So I'm excited about this conversation because I think it's critically important. We're going to focus today on Ukraine, but as we know, across the globe, there are many zones of conflict right now, and many of them seem to be worsening. So I'm really glad to be here with people who are working day in and day out to find solutions and help these kids have as normalized an education as they can, and perhaps in some ways learn to thrive even better than others will. So I want to welcome my panelists, Dr. Yevhen Kudriavets, who is the first Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Education of the Republic of Ukraine. Is it Republic of Ukraine, is that right? Just Ukraine.
Yeah.
Just Ukraine. I know it's not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine.
Yes.
Okay. So welcome, thank you for coming here and leading this conversation with us. Justin Van Fleet, who's the president and CEO of Theirworld, and you've been dealing with these issues of educating kids in difficult situations for a long time now. And Charlie Radman, who is the head of the global head of education at HP. And you are really kind of leading efforts in the private sector to meet demand and need where you find it. So this is an exciting conversation to be a part of. You know, I think for me as an American living in relative comfort and safety, it's hard for me to even get a sense of what we're talking about educating children in conflict. So Dr. Kudriavets, I want to see if I can ask you to start out by setting the tone to understand what the situation is in Ukraine today and how you're responding.
Thank you, Adam, and good day to everyone. It's a big honor for us to present today's current situation and generally share with you all that despite all the challenges and difficulties what Ukrainian kids and education system is suffering right now in Ukraine, we are able to fight and to build the sustainable system for different kind of situations, for kids on occupied territories, for kids on frontier lines, for internally displaced kids, for externally displaced in different countries all over the world. When someone is asking me how I can describe what is happening with education system as with Ukrainian kids in education, it's very hard question to answer, but not only because of the complexity of this case and this situation, but more than that there are a lot of personal stories and personal demands which complete different for every human and every kid in Ukraine right now. Some of them are in occupied territories yet. Some of them have been displaced to another region, and for the first couple of months and or even quarters, they didn't have access for education while they were in some secure place. Some of them moved through Europe or through all world to safe place from different locations by trains, buses, etc. And they didn't have access, and then they had language challenges in 20 languages in Europe, and then different other challenges with mental health, etc. It means that we are describing the situation as a complex, and you know that, for example, OECD, they made a research on social and emotional skills of kids all around the world, and Ukraine participated in this survey first time during the war, and it was an important case. When I will say this, but please don't share this.
Well, the internet is watching.
Okay, don't
You're live.
share. Don't share. No.
Okay.
No, don't share. Yeah, I believe that it will be not published yet, but in 2 weeks from now, the OECD will publish this report. I will share with you just one fact: that 15 years old is feeling more resilient and safe in Ukraine in comparison with 15 years old in other countries, because
I want to pause. I want to come back to this. I want you to make. I know we have a lot of things to get through, but this is such a critical point. And as Americans, I want us to just pause on that. That these kids are actually measuring higher on social and emotional safety than kids in developed countries that are not dealing with conflict. Right?
I think it's a point of hope. It's a point of building the future, and it's a point that they believe that they are not alone and they are fighting together with a big community, and they have a goal and purpose. And that's why I'm mentioning this, just to highlight the importance of doing things for them, to have this foundational resource to keep their access for education right now. It's security, it's online access. If you don't have security, it's mental health support and all other things.
So on the statistics, I mean, we have a slide, and a big thanks to Zhenya, who's somewhere here, who's done incredible work in the background, so thank you. We have some slides here. So maybe you can talk about the current learning modalities with the kids in Ukraine.
Yeah, we have 3.8 million roughly Ukrainian kids in education system right now. 1.9 is able to work and study in offline mode, in person actually, but we are so in technological way of speaking, like offline and online. Okay, so sometimes we are stopping ourselves from saying offline, because actually they're in person, but everyone is clear what does it online means and offline. Around 1 million we have in blended learning. It means what in our system blended means that kids, they are able to attend schools in person, but due to lack of capacity of shelters, they should be, for example, 1 week in person, 1 week online. It doesn't mean that they are a combination of classes, partly online and in person. It means that they have this kind of shifts when one kid can go in person, another, because the first prerequisite for school to be open is they should have shelter. We are discussing here technology, we are discussing here devices and all of these things, but for the good reason, first of all, we need to provide shelters, because we have only in Kyiv in the capital for the last 24 months, we had around 1,500 air raid attacks, and in other regions is around the same. We had on the frontline regions, it's 8 regions of Ukraine, the shellings are every day, and in some regions and counties, it's not possible to open the school even if they have shelter. That's why we are speaking today about online in the down of this slide. And can you advance, yeah. You can see that from online mode in Ukraine, the 600,000 kids are fully online, and it's mainly not only because of the lack of shelters, which are as well, but mainly because it's not possible to go to school even if they have shelter, what I started to speak. Why? Because the period of time when missile or artillery will hit the ground after the launch is less than opportunity to launch the air raid siren and the period of time to go to shelter.
So there's literally not enough time if you're in that, right, okay.
It's not possible for us to open the school and then say, like, go to shelter, you have 5 minutes. In Kyiv or Lviv or other western part of Ukraine, it will cost you like 30 minutes. And after the siren, you have 30 minutes to go to shelter while missile will hit the ground. But on the eastern part of Ukraine, it requires 2-3 minutes. And
that's because the artillery is so much closer that it's being shelled in
artillery is even 30 seconds, 1 minute, but I mean missiles is very close, and it means like the duration is like up to 5 minutes.
Can I ask one other question here? So then, of the 600,000 kids who are in Ukraine fully online or mostly online, Are they primarily in the eastern regions of the country or
It's
in Kherson?
85 and 90% of these numbers are in 10 regions of Ukraine. It's Odessa, Kherson, Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and others.
All the names we hear on CNN. in
Yeah,
the United States.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that you are very much in details on all these names, and it's over there. We are now building new shelters and trying to open more schools in areas where it's possible, but not. It's not possible to do with all these regions, and in these regions, if they are still there, it's very often low-income families or families with like disabilities or multiple members families up to with 4, 5 members, kids in the family, and they have one device or phone for everyone. And for them, it's not only for like when you are speaking about device, usually it sounds like something fancy and important. But when we are speaking about device in this case for these kids, it's about the basic rights, like the basic access. You will not have any other option because it's only way to have the window to the education.
Right. And probably because literally there aren't even windows where you're in a shelter and this is your window to the world, quite
Absolutely,
literally.
yeah.
That's a great metaphor. So, and let's talk briefly about the device situation and what the ministry is doing. And then I know we have a video where you'll actually hear from a student who's learning in this environment.
You can see these numbers, but before, you can read these numbers and you will see the video. But I will share the story of one girl in Kherson. You've heard this name, I'm sure, in media. The Kherson region was liberated by our government and our army last November, in November 2022. But before that, they have been under occupation from the February. It was almost 9 months of constant occupation by Russian army. And what means occupation? No access to the internet, no access to different education system at all in Ukraine. This story is beyond the getting device. It was before we shared first HP actually device to Kherson. It was very, very in time when HP donation came to Ukraine. It was 1 week after the occupation of Kherson, and Kherson was the first city to get these devices. But that story was 5 months earlier. The girl participating in very popular Olympiad in the United States, and we have affiliation in Ukraine, organizing it in Ukraine, Genius Olympiad. Genius Olympiad has affiliation in Ukraine, and it was the first year when it was national selection for Genius Olympiad. And this girl started to prepare her project before the war started, like 5 months before. And then war happened, full-scale invasion happened in February, and in March, we decided do not stop of this national selection, but not in person, online. And we sent that in asynchronous manner, you will able to present to the jury your project.
Wow.
And you need to record the video and send it to us, to organizers. I was, in that moment, the organizer of that Olympiad. And then this girl didn't have access to internet. And it was very dangerous to her to make this recording because Russians were checking the phones and everything if you are speaking Ukrainian, and you can be killed, etc. And she went to the basement and made a recording of this video, but no internet. You remember, but there is one place in the city which similar to U.S. post office, but it's Ukrainian post private company, and they continue to have Wi-Fi, and they made it open. And he did it to this post office and sent us this video to present to the jury. And 3 months later, she was selected to present Ukraine on Genius Olympiad Global here in New York. And she won the gold medal, the first. And we didn't know the story before she won. And then when she won, we just invited her to present how she made it from her son. And she was among the first who got the device in November. But it means that she has access in that moment, and this is the price of access: the worldwide visibility, the Ukraine resistance, and her personal future perseverance to get the result.
Thank you for sharing that. I actually want to share, this is a slightly different story, and we'll talk more about the 125,000 device number later. I think it's important that we talk about how devices in particular are so helpful, but let's take it to Ukraine. Do I just hit it again to play? All right.
Мене звати Аня, мені 16 років. Наразі я проживаю в місті Запоріжжя, я займаюся спортом, тобто це біг, ходжу до залу, а також читаю книжки.
З початку війни, коли нас зайшли окупували, була можливість виїхати тільки з однією валізкою маленькою. У нас не було можливості взяти з собою ні ноутбук, нічого. Наша дитина повністю перейшла на дистанційну форму навчання, у нас немає можливості відвідувати школу. У нас був тільки мобільний телефон, і вона навчалася з мобільного телефону.
Було трішечки важко, бо я не могла підготовити ті ж самі презентації, якісь доповіді.
В нашій школі було виділено 24 ноутбуки від організацій. Це набагато покращило її рівень дистанційного навчання.
На ноутбуці я виконую всі домашні завдання з всіх предметів 5 днів на тиждень, 6-7 років.
Це дуже важливо, тому що багато вчителів, які проводять уроки, використовуючи інтерактивні вправи. І саме ноутбук дає таку можливість доєднуватись до інтерактивних вправ і виконувати їх, не просто вести діалог, давати відповіді усно, але й виконувати вправи. Наша дитина мріє вступити в заклад, який, на жаль, не можу вам сказати, бо вона це тримає в тайні від усіх, бо хоче, щоб дійсно її мрія збулася. Даний ноутбук нам дає можливість досягати всіх навчальних цілей, які ми ставимо. Це дуже добре, коли є така можливість у дітей.
І я вважаю, що вони мають бути у кожної дитини.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the video, for bringing us into this world. And I actually want to see if I can actually pivot to you, Justin, for just a minute. Okay, Charlie, a glass of water? Okay. So Justin, maybe you're dealing with conflict across the globe. You know, how would you describe the situation in Ukraine versus other conflict zones, and how has the Ukrainian government really responded, perhaps in a different way?
Yeah, that's a great question. At the Global Business Coalition for Education, actually it's nice to sit between Yevhen and Charlie because that's our goal. We're sort of this intermediary that brings the private sector to help support public education around the world. And so in this instance of Ukraine, this is a great example, but unfortunately not the only example of work we've done in conflict and crisis settings around the world. Today there's 75 million kids whose education is disrupted because of some type of crisis, conflict, or natural disaster. And that's year after year. And the average refugee will be a refugee for 17 years. So if you're a child of 5...
17 years.
17. So if you're starting your education at the age of 5 and war breaks out, it's very likely that you could be a refugee for your entire school-age career. And so those are some of the issues that these young people are dealing with, and their whole life is sort of uprooted and everything sort of flipped upside down and overturned. And if they're out of school, for every 1 year they miss out on school, they're 50% less likely to go back. And so in those young, crucial years, if we don't bring them back into education really quickly, not only does it hinder their long-term learning, their likelihood to go back to school, but also the whole social, emotional dimension and psychosocial support that these young people need. School provides that sense of normalcy, some sense of continuity in an otherwise very chaotic world and environment. And that's why delivering education in these contexts is so essential and so important. And so in Ukraine, a particular scenario here where we're using devices, it almost goes back to a COVID-style response, is how do we connect as many kids to learning when they're unable to be connected? The program that we're talking about today is inside Ukraine. The project we did with Charlie and HP, we also helped support children in about 6 or 7 other countries that are being where Ukrainian children went and fled education, so they could keep learning, connect back in with their teachers, and continue learning in that system. And each context drastically different. We worked in Nigeria, where we had young girls kidnapped very recently, but also 10 years ago when the spree started. Places like Pakistan, Lebanon, Jordan, places around the world where conflict and disaster is impacting learning. And so each place is very contextual and different, and this solution is very is different from many of the others because there's a bit of resource, there's a bit of infrastructure that we can harness, and because of that connectivity, because of the ability to bring electricity, even in places where it's not constant, young kids can keep learning, and it's so important to keep them in these learning opportunities, because the second that we lose them, it's not just a young life that sort of goes off and is sort of not having these opportunities, but eventually war will end. Eventually, a young person will need to enter society and help rebuild their country. And this is the opportunity we have right now to help these young people gain those skills, continue that momentum of learning, so they can become the future scientists, engineers, contractors that are the ones on the front lines of rebuilding a society.
I mean, I just think about the pandemic learning loss and how we are lamenting that. And, 2 years of pandemic has led to like 4 years of learning loss for most kids. But when you think about this level of disruption, incredible. And when I pivot it back to think about what you're doing in Ukraine to sort of create a thread of normalcy through this, it's extraordinary. Charlie, maybe you can share a little bit about HP's role in the device coalition. I mean, you got some computers, it turns out. You're good at that.
Yeah, we were pretty good at the computer part, and what we weren't really good about is figuring out how to make it into Ukraine, right? And so I'll just do the math for you really quick. So we had a bunch of devices that we had already pre-built for the Ukrainian market. We had a bunch of devices that we'd pre-built for the Russian market. And we decided very quickly, well, we had to do a little bit of math. We were like, well, we could take those devices back. We could rework them, and we could probably sell them somewhere else in Europe. Why? And that was the first question that people asked, was why would we do that? They're needed right here, right now. And so very quickly we aligned on, there's no point in taking them back. Yeah, we could go make money on them, but why? Let's use them for good. And so that was the first challenge, was internally. We had to figure out we wanted to go do this. And that was very quickly solved, and I was very proud about that. But then it was like, how do we go do this? Well, we've been fortunate enough to partner with Theirworld and with Global Business Coalition for Education many, many times. We've done stuff in Uganda, we've done stuff in other countries. And so that was the very first phone call. Can you help us? And they were like, yeah, we'd be glad to. In fact, we've already been looking at this, and we got these requests coming in. And then it was really just making it logistically work. Which, by the way, sounds really easy, but was not really easy at all. Getting devices into a war-torn country, getting devices re-imaged, getting them set up for a student to be able to do remote learning. When they had no power, they had no internet. They were doing it literally by generator, 5 of them at a time, right after cities were reliberated. It's crazy. But for HP, we were there every step of the way we possibly could, because it was important to us. The stories that you saw with the video, we shared internally with our employees so that they knew the impact that our devices were having on education. And when you get your employees to buy in, you get your management to buy in, it's a no-brainer. Because then they're like, this could have been my kid. This could have been my kid's age. And so for us, it's incredibly important. We did 70,000 devices. 70,000 devices, when you sell them, is a lot of money. 70,000 devices, when you donate them and they do amazing things like what they've done here, is worth more than any of that money could have been. And for us, we're incredibly proud of that.
Yeah, I think it's extraordinary, and so many organizations I fight forward. If you want to see some of the great organizations that have been participating in the device coalition and handing over, it's 168,000 devices, extraordinary. And you may, hey, out on the internet, if you're in an organization that has extra devices, we'll talk more. There's need. So all the kids in Ukraine do not yet have those devices. I'd love to go back, if we can, to the social emotional part, which I found so startling when we talked about it first the other night. Dr. Kudriavets, I mean, to what do you mentioned purpose, and are there any, and is this something you see in other countries as well, Justin, like this idea that kids who are in these situations, I mean, where other kids are trying to avoid education, these kids are seeking it? How do we get our head around that as Americans?
No, and that's the funny thing is if you talk to a 15-year-old in the U.S., they're trying to think of how they can get out of school. They're loathing going to school the next day. But so many of the young people we work with cannot wait for that opportunity to go to school. They're striving for that opportunity to go to school. For whatever reason, they're locked out of school, whether it be poverty, whether it be gender, or in this case, war and conflict. And that is their goal. And we've surveyed family after family in refugee camps around the world. And the number one thing a parent wants for their child, they don't say food, they don't say water, they don't even say shelter. They say, I want an education. That's the first thing that they want. Yet less than 2% of humanitarian aid goes to education in emergency settings. And so this is some of the work that we're trying to do and some of the work that we're trying to tackle. And for that young person to have that opportunity to go to school, whether it be virtually, whether it to be with other peers in person, it's hope. And that's what we're creating here. We're creating hope for a future. When you look around and you see bombs flying, missiles landing, people that you know and love dying, having that hope that you can create a better future. And if you put your head down, if you really work hard, and we can give this lifeline, that they can make a better future for themselves, their communities, their country, and the world.
I think I want to make sure we don't make it sound trivial to get these devices to these kids and to get enough internet to have connectivity. Can you take us a little bit into the factory and how do you actually make this work? How do you get the devices to the kids? How do you get them on the internet? How do you get the classes to function?
I will continue a couple of words of what
Please.
Justin said. That, it's important to say that it's not only about education as a goal for them. As soon as they, you said, I'm messing around, but you said about 2 years of COVID and pandemic. But just imagine when the world started to speak about the recovery after pandemic, it was February 2022.
Wow. So you had 2 years of pandemic and then you went straight into...
Continuously, it was into the full-scale invasion. And we didn't have this period of time in our education system to speak about that. And just imagine that 1st of September 2024, it will be in a couple of months from now, it would be the 5th year for some kids without in-person education. And I spoke with some ministers from other countries in Europe, in Asia, and they said that kids returning back from COVID, from pandemic to class, they're more aggressive, they are not so socialized, etc., because they didn't have these communities. And when they are struggling and really struggling to get this education, it's very, very much about the case when you can communicate, when you can be in society, you cannot be alone. It's important. And in this case, as Charles already shared, probably we can have another session on how we delivered this 70,000 into Ukraine. And it was the big story, and the delivery started in November 2022. It was a month when Russians decided to shut down our grid, and it was blackouts from 5 to 8 hours a day. And the main challenge was that we before sending these devices to teachers and to kids, it was important to install the Windows on them. And it was the special secret warehouse when we did it with this system what we built. But when electricity is out, you can do this. And it means that you need to start over. And for example, 200 devices on installation, electricity shut down, you need to start again. And all of this are part of the challenges, but in the end of the day, you know that the truck from this region is waiting on the parking lot to pick up these devices and drive them to Kherson or Zaporizhia. And then the best part that, of course, it's very, very good to share that internet is working. It's not the full shutdown. And what we are proud of our communication system in Ukraine, it was just one day in 5 months of full-scale invasion when one telecommunication was not working, like one operator, like T-Mobile, Ukrainian T-Mobile was not working for 1 day for 26 months of full-scale invasion. All others, including LTE, 5G, everything is working, and they have access to internet, but they don't have access for device. In the areas when Russians are blocking the signal, the Starlinks is helping in schools and in the army.
Really, really helpful context. We had talked about wanting to be able to take a few questions, and I want to be able to open it up if people do. We have plenty to talk about if you don't, but is there anyone who had a question that they wanted to be able to ask? Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to paraphrase you because we don't have a mic for you.
Are you also facing the challenge of having school-age children under arms?
Are you having a challenge of school-age children being...
Boys that are actually engaged in fighting rather than...
Oh, are you having some student-aged kids?
The draft age is 27, and now it's lowered to 25. It means that under the 25, it's not possible. Only volunteers can go to the front, but the draft age in Ukraine is 25 right now.
Great.
So I'm really interested in the fact that your children are able. Thank you. I'm really interested in the fact that your children are able to learn and that they've done well on this international study that we're not supposed to talk about. Because there was a famous study of children who were living at the Branch Davidian place in Texas that burned down. And a group of psychiatrists and psychologists went in and they studied these kids. And I guess you would say they had post-traumatic stress syndrome, but their hearts were racing so hard and they were so afraid, and I'm sure you see this in other countries where you're working, that it was just really getting in the way of learning.
So is the question, under this much stress...
Just digging a little bit more in this question about how are kids handling stress?
How do they handle stress? And then if I can add to it, Marjorie, how do you supplement education to help them cope with the stress?
A lot of international organizations like UNESCO and UNICEF is providing different programs to address mental health issues and to address stress issues. And it's probably in years from now we will have time after the victory to research why we have reacted this way and why our community and society showed this kind of resilience and resistance. But I think that our students and our kids, they are part of this society, they are part of this spirit. And when different partners, development partners, emergency partners, humanitarian aid partners came to Ukraine, and like the education never stopped in Ukraine for even like couple of hours. I said like before, when war started, I was in different position. I was working in UNESCO Center in Ukraine for science education. We did different scientific programs. We didn't conduct programs only from 21st of February up to 1st of March. It was the time when our team was able to relocate themselves to a safer place. And on 1st of March, in 7 days from the start of full-scale invasion, we have restored all educational programs online, all competitions, everything. And in the end of 2022, we launched an experiment to the space with SpaceX. Started during the war.
I mean, I think about the importance of modeling as adults. That what you're modeling is purpose, consistency, resilience, right? And we know that resilience is such a critical trait for students. I think we have time for one more question, and then we actually have a video from the Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine as well, which we will wrap our time out with. Yes, in the back.
Hi, yeah, my name is Patrick Rodriguez. I'm the co-executive director of the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison. And this might be an interesting kind of through line, but I'm hearing, again, it's going to sound so crazy because there's nothing really to compare, but I'm hearing a lot of the same things that we struggle with in our Department of Corrections as it relates to getting students technology, going at students that are currently going through something traumatic. Every single one of your students is currently going through a traumatic time in their life. So I'm also curious about like what pedagogy are you guys utilizing? Are you taking a trauma-informed approach? How do you take a trauma-informed approach through virtual learning and things of that nature? Because I mean, I'm very disappointed in what's happening over there. So I send you all the best vibes that I can to you and your people, as I think that this should stop very quickly.
We are doing right now different things to help teachers and educators to tackle these challenges. First of all, we are teaching them how to speak about the war from in different ages, like why we have this brutality against Ukraine, why Russia is fighting against Europe and general values which they don't have. And we are trying to help on this level, because a lot of kids in 5-6 years, they're asking their teachers and supervisors like why I can't go there, like why we are going to shelter. And this is the basic. And other things what we are trying to explain and to work is that this kind of issues not only with kids, teachers are struggling as well, adults are struggling as well. This is general community spirit, these challenges. And I mean, universal approach, inclusivity, and create a safety space in school whenever it's possible.
I want to thank everybody. We don't have time for any more questions. If we're going to hear from the Vice Prime Minister, I'm going to hit it to the last video. And before I click that video, I just want to note that you have a shorter-term goal right now of trying to get 10,000 more devices on the goal toward 128,000. So we're going to have a QR code that we'll play this video, and then if you want to, I'm going to give a minute for the QR code if anyone wants to learn more about the Device Coalition, how you or your organization might participate. I will linger here until you all give me the note, and those of you online,
while you are scanning QR code, I just wanted to add that Theirworld is partner of this Device Coalition in the United States. It's a very valuable cooperation for us. And you can communicate with Theirworld, and we have the separate page of Theirworld as a U.S. non-for-profit organization, when it's very easy to donate inside the U.S. with all tax incentives.
So it's a 501c3, Justin?
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the magic number letter combination is 501c3. Okay.
And if I could then compliment the person to my right, if that's all right, just take the liberty. Which I just want to say that today, this is one company, HP, but today in Ukraine there are 1.7 million children. We did the evaluation that are either displaced or refugees that are using or logging into education by a teacher teaching with one of these HP devices. So one company is having a tremendous impact, and if everyone comes on board and really contributes the piece of the puzzle that they can, we can really help lift up and elevate a system that's really under stress.
And I guess I would just say, I think I sometimes feel like I fall victim to the news of watching CNN and feeling helpless. And it's nice to know that there are things that you can do to kind of regain that sense of control in your life by doing something good. And it's wonderful to be able to have this opportunity. So thank you all thank you all three so much. Thank you for flying out from Ukraine and for all the work that you're doing. And we will hear from the Vice Prime Minister before we get kicked out of the room. So thank you to all of you as well.
Greetings from Kyiv. Let me start with expressing my gratitude to the team organizing this event and the special session dedicated to Ukrainian education during the war. It's quite important to have education on the agenda and discuss the current issues and needs, as this shapes the fundament of our future as much as ongoing battles. As Vice Prime Minister, who oversees the education sphere, I would like to walk you through both: the education landscape impacted by the war and the vision where we are striving to get in next year's. As Minister of Digital Transformation, I will highlight the role of technologies in this process. First of all, one of the policies and focuses in 2024 is to get students back offline. Thousands of schools and institutions have been damaged by Russian missiles and artillery shellings. Some of the education infrastructure is still under temporary occupation. Big deals are also regions and frontline territories, where bombing and air alerts constantly interrupt the education process and put the lives of students under real threat. By the end of 2024, we want to get back to an offline format with at least 300,000 students. To do so, we have to, firstly, rebuild, Secondly, equip schools with safe shelters. To analyze the situation with shelters and damages, we've cooperated with top tech company, Palantir, and created special dashboards to track all kinds of information available. As a result, we've ended up with a detailed map, which serves in the decision-making process, planning the investments and ensuring transparency to donors and partners. Secondly, online education. At least 800,000 kids located in Ukraine are learning in distance mode. Also, thousands of children are keeping up with Ukrainian school programs from abroad. And this is a big challenge for the government, to ensure quality education as well as to make it relevant to the real-life conditions and market needs. Ukrainian kids and students deserve to have the best education even under conditions of the full-scale invasion. To do so, we've started the big changes and reforms, as this should be the major update of the system. I will highlight only a few of them as I'm limited on time here. Maria, which in Ukrainian means dream, this will become a revolutionary educational application for kids, their teachers, and parents. Right now, we are launching the MVP of Maria application. The first 40 schools and 100,000 users will do the beta testing from the end of April to September, right before the start of the new educational season. The idea of Maria is to inspire learning and help every Ukrainian to find himself in the modern world. This will include pretty unique features, AI, personalized learning trajectories, dashboard of successes, and many more. I believe this will be indeed inspirational success story. Another focus is pushing STEM. I believe that changes in education are the foundation for the economic breakthrough of Ukraine and the development of human capital. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced quite a goal for the Ukraine's GDP, $1 trillion. This means that it is necessary to increase the country's income by more than 5 times. In order to achieve this goal, innovative companies with high added value that will cost billions must be created in Ukraine. Such companies are created by people with analytical thinking who studied STEM. Certain competencies are required for a nation to innovate. We've already tested and scaled a pilot project for schools. This is an updated IT course, which we called IT Studios. We've made significant changes into the program and updated it with the most relevant and recent knowledge of programming and cybersecurity. Though, in order to implement these changes in real life, we've faced problems supplying kids and teachers with gadgets, which they can use to actually learn these new knowledge and achieve new skills. That's how the idea of Device Coalition came up. Providing devices is a critical issue, as now approximately 2 million children continue to study online or in a mixed format. 327,000 children miss classes or may not attend at all because they do not have laptops and tablets. So, I would like to end my speech with a call to action. Feel free to support and join our coalition. Every device matters. Each tablet or laptop will be used to create a new generation of leaders and smart people. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you all.
Thank you all.